There's an Alien TV show coming out, and I thought it might be time to revisit the world of Alien clones, and knockoffs, and ripoffs. And I've already done 2 videos that featured previous sets of movies that knocked off this franchise. So there's a lot of them out there. And you might ask yourself, hey, when's the best time to watch these movies? And I say, they mostly come on at night. Mostly. Number 7. Our first stop on this trip into films capitalizing on Alien releases starts in 2024 with Alien Hunt. You see, Alien Romulus came out, so someone decided that it wouldn't hurt to have something similar on the market. So we have these park rangers out in the woods, and some sort of creature comes out of the caves and attacks, but it's held back by being tied up. But then this woman with a machine gun shows up, and as soon as they say that they saw the thing, she shoots them. Then it jumps ahead 5 years, and we're in Nashville, and I've only been to Nashville once, and it was like 20 years ago, but damn, did I like it there. We meet Emily, and she's just been fired, and her brother convinces her to take a trip back home to their small town to see family. But Machine Gun Lady is still here and says she's guarding a confidential lab and has closed off the entire area. Emily, her brothers, and a friend decide to go hunting up there anyway, and they ignore the signs. They have an old cabin and settle in to hang out and reconnect, but there's something outside in the woods watching them. The next day they go out on the hunt, but are confused at the lack of any animals around. But they do see something alien. And I mean, look at this guy. This is basically Temu Xenu. And it has the elongated dick head and the shoulder pipes. It's near exact. They eventually find the cave entrance, and the sergeant is there, injured, and they take her back to the cabin. But when she wakes up, she goes on the attack. But so does the creature. And sometimes it's CGI, but other times it's a guy in a suit. And again, look at this guy. It's like someone trying to draw a xenomorph from memory, and their memory was terrible. When the thing takes one of the bros down into the cave, they have to try to get down there to save him, although there's a rogue doctor down there messing around with alien eggs and coming up with some sort of master plan to do something. And this is written and directed by Aaron Mirtes. And I think this is the 3rd or 4th film that I've featured on his channel. He did Clowntergeist, an It clone, Curse of the Nun, a Nun clone, and Ouija Craft, which I put on the Ouija movie list. And his movies are generally decently made in the fact that they look nice and have actors that seem like they know what they're doing. But the scripts are always the sticking point. Again, the script here isn't overly terrible, but it's just not doing anything you haven't seen 1,000 times before. And that alien was clearly designed to look very familiar, especially since they plastered it all over the promotional art. Number 6. Our next journey into xenomorph territory here is 2017's Alien Doicile. And keep in mind, 2017 is the year that Alien Covenant came out. We're in Nevada, not deep space, but there's parts of Nevada that certainly feel like it. And there's some soldiers here, including this guy who looks more like he'd be the bassist for Weezer than a soldier, but they're quickly taken out by some sort of creature. Then there's another group that wakes up in a room together, and they're mostly confused why they're there. They all work for the military in one way, but are mostly low-level employees, and they decide it's best to stay put. One of them finds blood on her neck and is stalked by a dark figure and ends up strapped to a table with a big wound on her back. But that appears to be a dream, or maybe a memory. They argue for a bit about wanting to stay or leave, and then the lights go out. And that seems to be when the events in that opening happen. So the first act here was mostly a flashback. Things take a turn when Weezer Man shows up at the door asking to be let in, and they realize that there's no one coming to get them. So they're going to have to make their own way out. When we finally get a look at one of the alien beasties out there, well, they don't look much like a Xeno and have glowy brains. But it's clear that something else is going on, and their internal struggles increase, but mostly just walk around or chat. Like 90% of this movie is slowly walking down hallways, but then stopping to talk in a room. And I bet you're thinking that since this is timed up with the release of an Alien film and has Alien real big in the title, that it's just a cheap knockoff, that it's from the Asylum. But it's not. It's from a company called Indie Film Factory, and they don't have a huge roster of films, but several of them are also mockbusters. It was both written and directed by Kelly Schwarz, and he'd done a handful of other things, but nothing really well known. It said that this one has a budget of around $85,000, so it was clearly on the lower end of things, but it did get a follow-up in 2018 with Alien Doicile II, Lot 24. So, you'll notice that except for the title and the time of release, there's not much in the way of plot elements that link this to the Alien franchise. The plots are different. The settings, most of it isn't actually comparable. And what's funny is that this is the original poster. And you can see that it features the aliens from the movies, but when it got a new cover, they went with this instead. So, they tried harder to match the Alien font and design, and now features two aliens, and neither of them are in the movie, and the one on the right is absolutely trying to look like a certain Giger design. It's not great, and like I said, most of the film is just walking down hallways, but it did have a pretty solid twist in the final moments. I just wish that they had shown that amount of creativity earlier on. Number 5. We're going to keep on going back in time now, and in 2012, the same year as Prometheus was released, there was also Alien Origin. It starts by telling us that a military group went into the jungle and never came out, but their footage was recovered. So prepare for some found footage stuff, I suppose. It's in Belize, and we meet Julia, who's making a documentary and reporting on the special unit's mission. And they head out, and then they just wander around for a while. Later, there's some tape recovered from underwater that seems to show someone encountering something down in the river. They set up a bunch of trail cams that capture some random wildlife, but the next day, they find a bunch of strange markings in the trees. So then, they walk around the jungle some more. And then, some more. Like remember in the last movie where I said that it was a whole lot of walking down hallways? Well, this is that, but without the hallways, and more of it. Eventually, they intercept a package delivery, and inside is footage of an alien skull. And they're looking at tapes from a group of archaeologists that also went missing. And they go into a cave. Inside is the remains of some sort of camp and a bunch of bones, one of which was that skull in the footage. But there's also this gooey substance down there, and something comes after them, and the footage ends. But then they find one of those archaeologists, and she leads them to where they were, and they find a large craft and decide to stroll right in. Trouble starts right away, and when I say right away, I mean 52 minutes into this movie that so far has just been people walking through a jungle, but now we have explosions. But don't get too excited, because it's followed up by lots more woods walking. They find that cave, though, and go in. And again, get ready for some walking around. And like I said, this came out at the same time as Prometheus, and that came out on June 8th. This debuted just 4 days later, on June 12th. And yep, this one actually is from the Asylum. It was heavily hyped at the time that Prometheus was revealing the history of the engineers and how they were the origin of life on Earth, so it was decided to cash in on that by making this title that seems to feature similar concepts, even if the actual film content was mostly different. And for as much as I dislike Prometheus, and bear in mind, I truly do not care for that film, I would watch it over this anytime. Like, sure, dumb things happen in that one, but things happen. Things do happen. Number 4. This next one is funny because it's a double whammy ripoff with 2004's Unseen Evil 2. And you may ask, why not Unseen Evil 1? And maybe it's because of this film's other title, Alien 3000. And that's great. It starts with an earthquake, but no birds, snakes, or aeroplanes, although I doubt Lenny Bruce is afraid at all. And the quake opens up a cavern that these teens stroll into. They find a bunch of ancient gold in there, and it's hilariously clean, but then there's this weird alien creature, but it can turn invisible while it kills them. And hey, that sounds like a creature from a different film series, and I'll talk about that in a bit too. Flick is here, and this is his post-child star career, post-porn career comeback when he began acting in mainstream work again. When a park ranger finds a body, the Paranormal Research Agency is called in, and Terry is a part of it, as is the Renegade. And here's a fun fact. I used to have really long hair back in the 90s, and people would nonstop call me the Renegade and say I look like Lorenzo Lamas, and sure, whatever, I guess. Kate, a survivor of the first movie, knows something is going on, and yeah, when we get a look at the creature, it's a CGI mess, but has a resemblance to the xenomorph, but not a whole lot. It kills a dude in a hilarious way. And hey, speaking of hilarious...
You brought this upon yourself! You're the monster. You're the evil one! You're evil! You're evil! You're evil! You're evil!
A bunch of mercenaries head out there, and like, none of these people look anything like what you'd think of when you think of mercenaries. And I love that this guy's name is Sergeant McCool. They find the cave, and there's intrigue about the gold in there as a couple of mercs decide to steal it for themselves. But here's the kicker. The alien is obsessed with the gold and will kill anyone who takes it, like some sort of xeno leprechaun. And, okay, the first Unseen Evil film was more of a Predator ripoff with the invisible alien attacking in the woods. But this was 2004, and Aliens vs. Predator was arriving in the theaters, so it was time to capitalize on that. So Jeff Leroy stepped up to the plate, and he's got some silly movies in his filmography like Werewolf in a Woman's Prison and Rat Scratch Fever. And the titling is where it got more ripoff oriented, because it may have run as Unseen Evil 2 for a while, but then it was released as Alien 3000, and this was the poster art. And I should point out that the alien in this film looks nothing like the one pictured here. So, with this promotion, showing what looks to be a xenomorph under the title Alien 3000 with the tagline, "A new breed of predator," it's 100% clear what they were going for here. And it's amusing and entertaining, but it does drag a bit, although if you're a fan of So Bad It's Good movies, this is for you. I mean, it's the kind of movie where a truck goes off a cliff and explodes, only the explosion is about 15 feet behind where the truck lands.
That's what you get! Bombs away, you greedy bastard!
Number 3. It's time to go way back now, back to the OG era. And in 1986, a movie called Aliens came out, but so did Star Crystal. It starts by telling us that it's 2032 on a routine Mars expedition. And I have so much to say about that. Like, first of all, the movie poster says 2035, not 32. So, whoops. But also, that's only 7 years away now. Like, yikes. And finally, routine Mars expedition. Geez, they're going for routine trips to Mars for terraforming, and all we have is asshole billionaires doing tourism runs into the atmosphere high enough to barely qualify it as space. And how's this for familiar? These astronauts are down on the planet, which is very windy and full of dust, and they find some sort of egg and bring it back to their ship. Since it's ripping alien, they discuss bonuses and look more like truckers than astronauts. Soon enough, that egg is cracking open, and inside is a crystal. You might say, a star crystal. There's also a tiny baby creature, and soon there's a disruption to the oxygen system, and the entire crew dies. 2 months later, that ship is brought on board a space station, and a repair crew is sent on board to square up the issues. But disaster strikes right away when the crystal flares up and causes an explosion that cripples the station. They realize they don't have enough supplies and have to make a plan to wait out their rescue and go about getting things organized to survive. And there's one crewmate that might as well be named Ropley for her general look. However, she's the first to go, attacked by the now grown alien life form on board because it's definitely doing the alien thing. Especially because we then have crawling around through narrow ducts and a scene with following two lit up dots through a simulation. And the first hour of this movie is a straight up reproduction of Alien to the point that it feels like plagiarism. But then something happens. The final half hour of this movie makes a jarring and odd left turn and becomes something else entirely that I don't want to spoil, but it's no longer a clone. And this was directed and co-written by Lance Lindsay, and was one of only 2 movies he'd handle. After this, he'd do an action film in '88 called Real Bullets, and then only had an acting credit in '91 before vanishing altogether. To cash in on the similarities to Alien, the poster featured a rather toothy monster front and center, one that's close, but not too close to a xenomorph, although there's nothing at all like that in the film itself. It actually did get a theatrical run, although I didn't find any numbers for it, so it's hard to say how successful it was. And it is pretty watchable. Like, sure, the beginning feels standard as can be, but I enjoyed the twist that it was giving me, like turning out to be a unique take on the alien on a spaceship genre. Number 2. So for this next one, I'm covering something unusual and not something I would normally feature on a ripoff list. But I wasn't quite sure where else to discuss this, and it seemed to fit in. But in 2019, there was Alien, the play. So this is a school play, and I'll talk about that more in a moment, but Sigourney Weaver introduces it. And it begins with our Ripley waking up from cryo sleep. And we have our Captain Dallas with his amazing fake beard. And they get a signal from a planet down below and decide to head down there. Meanwhile, I love that the actor that plays Brett looks about 12, and I don't remember this part in Alien.
Not again.
This is my
You guys always have to do this.
I think it's very vital.
They touch down and look at these spacesuits. And even though it follows the film, it does take liberties with the dialogue.
Where does it go?
See?
Why don't you Google it?
Google? The hell is that?
It's this $1 million idea I came up with. What do you think, huh?
What a terrible idea, man. What a stupid name.
They find the engineer, and again, look at this. They made this. They find the egg chamber, and one opens up, and he's attacked by a facehugger. And look, I don't have to explain the plot of Alien to you, so there's really no need to recap what happens here. So I'm basically just going to show you how they interpreted it here. Because again, this is a freaking high school play. A New Jersey high school. And here's how they do the breakfast scene. And if you're like, there's no way that they're letting a school do a big spray of blood, you're wrong. And look at this little guy. They do a little bit of movie crossover.
It's losing the ship.
It's game over, man! Game over!
But then they get to Brett's death, and we get a look at the Xenomorph, and holy crap, again, this is a school play. It walks through the audience, and seriously, how cool is this? And it's easy to say that this might be some fancy Dan rich kid suburban school, but it's from a school that is said to be one of the least funded schools in New Jersey. And most of the costumes and props were created by the kids using their own money and from junk. It was directed by Perfecto Cuervo, which is one of the coolest names I've come across recently, and he's a teacher and director for the drama club there, and they decided to take on this challenge. And it premiered in March of 2019 and only had 2 performances. But then clips of it showed up online, and they went viral in a big way, getting massive amounts of attention. One person that saw it was Sigourney Weaver, and she was enamored by the story, and she made a video response to it. She got Ridley Scott involved, and he put up $5,000 for them to be able to do an encore performance, which is the one that's viewable online. And this is just such an amazing achievement and such a great display of creativity. You're like, they're not going to do the thing with Ash's head, are they? And they do. And every time that Xenomorph suit shows up on screen, it's just jaw-dropping. So, kudos, kids. You've shown more creativity and art than most of the other films on this roster. Number 1. Here's one that's not as obvious of a ripoff, but it is one nonetheless, as we go to 1995 with Carnosaur II. And it's funny that I covered the first Carnosaur in the last ripoff videos, and now we're doing part 2, but we're ripping off a completely different franchise. We're at this nuclear waste repository out in the desert, and there's this guy who gets attacked by some sort of creature. But then we meet young Jesse here, and I've told this story before, but this movie has a scene that will forever be stuck in my head.
Whatever you do, don't throw this lever up. It operates the automatic doors over there.
Now, you see that, and you know by the ending of the movie that lever is going to be flipped. And it'll most likely be an important plot point, and that's actually called foreshadowing, but it's more accurately called Chekhov's gun, which says if you introduce a gun in the first act, it should be fired later in the play. But I didn't know about that when I saw this when it came out, and me and my friend Jeremy just referred to any obvious plot setup like this as the lever on the forklift. So, you have this little colony of workers, but they're all killed by dinosaurs. We then meet a deer hunter, and his cohorts include spider/demon, so I hope there's no enchiladas on this mission. But then Brad Majors 2.0 shows up, and he's a Weasley corporate guy, and look at this outfit. Does that seem familiar? And they're a military squad who are going in to investigate what happened to those people in the intro, and fly in with this bubblegum chewing pilot, which again, yeah, familiar. Of course, when they get there, they don't find anyone around, but lo and behold, they stumble across Jesse, who managed to survive the carnage by hiding. Jack bonds with Jesse mainly because he's lost his son, and they eventually face off against the aliens, or dinosaurs. But this film makes the foolish mistake of killing off Miguel Nunez too damn early. But as they try to get away, whoops, dino in the back seat, oldest trick in the book. And yeah, this scene is a carbon copy of that bit from Aliens, and well, everything in this movie is. It's note for note, up to and including the double cross by the corporate guy, and this is meant to be a sequel to Carnosaur, and they do very quickly reference the events of that one, but don't address the cliffhanger nature of the ending. It was directed by Louis Morneau, and he mostly worked for Corman in his earlier career, but later made Bats and The Hitcher 2, and even Joyride 2, but he hasn't directed since 2012. It said that the budget was around $1 million, but there's not hard confirmation of that, and they reused a number of the effects and even footage from Part 1, going as far as to modify the smaller dinos to make them into raptors, as opposed to the Deinonychuses that they were there. The fact that the plot cribbed so heavily from Aliens was strongly noted in reviews and discussion, but it was successful enough that a Part 3 would follow 1 year later. So there you have it, 7 movies that are blatant clones and ripoffs of Alien, except for the play, which obviously was like a recreation or a remake of it, and less a ripoff. But yeah, a lot of fun in this one. A couple of boring ones in there too, but mostly pretty enjoyable stuff in here in terms of the Alien ripoffs. Let me know some other ones that you know about down below in the comments. I want to hear more Alien ripoffs that I have not covered yet, because like I said, I have 2 previous videos full of these as well too. Let me know that down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of these ones. Tell me that down there. If you enjoy the video, like it. If you enjoy the channel, subscribe to it. And if you want to, go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines and help support this channel and keep it on going. And until then, I'll see you very shortly with another great video. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.